YouTube, this is Hunter Surge here with another day of Moonrise reveals. Let's get right into it. This is one we've been waiting for a minute. It's Lycavoid Day. It's Lycavoid Day. It's Lycavoid Day. Okay. Before we get into that though, there is one thing I want to touch on with spoiled fruit. So I asked a ruling about this before recording. I got an answer regarding Voldusk specifically. Because Voldusk says that when you cast a lunar phase, you can either return a lunar from your underworld back to your spirit deck or draw a card. Now, assumingly that activates that resolution, that choice made resolution, but that means that when the timing that you would be able to use spoiled fruit, it would be an effect that could return one or more spirits from their underworld to their spirit deck, or it could draw them a card. And the answer that came back was, yes, Spoiled Fruit would be able to negate that. So that raises Spoiled Fruit's prospects as a side card significantly, because that's the most important card in the entire Lunar Phase deck. That's the key card in that deck. A card that can, for one cost, negate and destroy, that card is massive. And honestly, kind of massively damages that deck's prospects. It's really not good for that deck, because, like, you can for this purpose, you can effectively have 6 copies, because Poison Nectar is the same card. Poison Nectar is the same card, but for draw effects instead, which Voldusk also is at this point. So you can have 6 1-costs that will negate and destroy Voldusk. That's really bad for Voldusk's prospects as a viable strategy. That's really bad for Lunar Phase as a deck. So that's really not ideal for that entire strategy. But that does raise Spoiled Fruit's prospects as a card a lot, because in addition to stopping heal stall, in addition to like stopping any other heal stuff, you can use it as a hard counter to Voldusk, which is pretty huge. Very important part of the evaluation of this card. All right, let's get into the new stuff. First, we have Porker Wraith. We talked about this card the other day. This was the card that Dan was using in the casual webcam tournament that we didn't know before. So Porker Wraith is 2/2, 1 lunar. When it enters battle with an Elestral, you can give that Elestral. It's actually only -2 attack. I thought he said it was -2 attack and -2 defense, but it's only -2 attack, which does like make the card notably worse, because it means it can't beat over big defense position things, which is not ideal. But it's still like pretty solid. For each lunar enchanting this Porker Wraith until end of turn. Now, this is not something I considered when I was talking about before, but Dan points out in this video. This has pretty good synergy with Full Moon, because you can put 2 more lunars onto Porker Wraith with Full Moon, and now this is a -6. It's able to beat over a bunch of ascensions too at that point, which is pretty cool. It's also spectral, so it can be searched by Komalas, which is a pretty great place for the card to be. Because that means that one of the methods of getting Porker Wraith's debuff up higher is also a method by which you can give it more spirits. Now, this does give it anti-synergy with both Artemis now, because both Artemis does piercing damage, and this can't reduce the defense of whatever it's attacking into. So it can't really take advantage of the piercing damage portion. But it's still a pretty strong card. This is a card I will be strongly considering in several lunar builds I am drafting up, because this has a lot of potential. Any deck that is going to be able to get more spirits on a single guy is going to get really good value out of this card, because this is effectively a 6 against things that can suppress it. Of course, it's always weak to Gorgon, Skaze, and Specterus, as cards like this always are, but this is still like pretty powerful. This is a pretty potent card that I would definitely keep an eye on. Very, very strong. And it's only a common too. Very nice. Then we have, here we have the normal art of Werepup. Pretty cool. Not what we're here for. We've gone over it before. 3/2 can on normal cast searches for any lunar phase, and when you cast lunar phase Full Moon, which we know is a counter rune, you can special send this Werepup to Lycavoid from your hand or deck. As a refresher, this is Full Moon. It's a 1-cost counter rune that enchants up to 2 Lunar to an Elestral on your field. When this Lunar phase is discarded by another Lunar phase, you can foretell 3. Now, Lycavoid is a card I'm not sure how to feel about. So Lycavoid is a 6/2 that costs 2 Lunar. Its effect is that it deals piercing damage and is unaffected by counter runes if you cast Lunar Phase Full Moon this turn. So this is a bit weird. So for one, it's really powerful, as potentially really powerful as an aggro tool. So like, let's say you're able to save the Full Moon until your turn. You flip it up. You special send. You flip it up. You put 2 Lunars onto your Werepup. With the effect, then you special send into Lycavoid, you put another Lunar on, and then you haven't used your normal action that turn because you played the Werepup last turn, so you put 1 last on. Okay, so that's a 5 spirit Lycavoid now, that's unaffected by counter runes and is dealing piercing damage. Okay, that's pretty cool. However, the obvious use case of a special ascension effect like Werepups is it means that you can ignore its 3/2 stat line, because you're going to be able to search whatever special sends it, and then you're going to be activate that before its stat line becomes an actual issue, which is pretty cool. However, Full Moon doesn't do anything to protect it, and since this only gets this effect during the turn that Full Moon was cast, you can't. If you use it to defensively, like your opponent swings into the Werepup, you flip over Full Moon, you turn to Lycavoid. It is now a 6 attacker. They probably can't switch it to defense anymore at this stage. You could always misenchant it, since it's not going to be getting the effect anyways, with the water, so that they can't try any tsunami shit. And yeah, you're pretty good in that. You're pretty good at that stage. But that means it's not getting any effect. That means it's a 6/2 vanilla. And maybe that's good enough. Maybe that interaction and like being a Lunar Phase Searcher is just good enough that you don't care that it's just a 6/2 vanilla. Maybe that's the case. I could see that being the case. I could very well see that being the case. But it means that if you want to save the Full Moon so that you can actually use the effect and do it aggressively, that means you need another counter rune set to protect the Werepup. And that means you are opening yourself up to every piece of anti-multiple sets, every effect that's anti-multiple sets that we were getting in this set. That means you're open to a really valuable Hurricane, which you can mitigate a bit because Full Moon you can just flip up at any time in response to the Hurricane. Still got your Lycavoid, but it's much more vulnerable this time. You can, yeah, no, that's really the only thing, because they probably won't have committed anything, so your whatever counter ring you have set to help protect your Werepup won't be usable at that stage, so that's not ideal. Okay, so the other line that you can possibly do is you normal ascend it. However, this runs into the same issue because you need to set Full Moon ahead of time. And to go for a normal send, you need to be trying to ensure that your body survives to the next turn, which means you need to have another counter rune set, which means you're open to a really valuable Hurricane. Like, this could be the deck that's like, okay, no, we absolutely totally do play Hurricane if this is enough of a threat, because this is a deck that the nature of how it really functions means that it has to play into the Hurricane. It has to play into it. Now, I am someone who plays Cryo Scorch a lot. I know the value of big damage finishers. Trust me. But Cryo Scorch is a 8 to 9 damage finisher. That is what that card is. It is typically dealing 8 to 9 damage. It is dealing minimum 5. It is clearing every counter rune. It's just really nice in that way. The peak of what we're seeing is like 5, and that's comparable to Arcalith, which can come down out of nowhere. Like, Arcalyph is way better at being this sort of aggro finisher because it just comes down out of nowhere. And it's just going to go, okay, 4 damage to the face. If that doesn't work out, I can use these extra spirits for other things because they're coming out of my underworld. They're not coming out of my spirit deck. Every spirit you're getting on Lycavoid in this playline is coming from your spirit deck. So that's something to be very, very aware of with this card. I don't know. Being unaffected by counter runes on such an aggro intense card is very strong. However, by my estimation, this has like the exact same, like, okay, so like Cryo Scorch is weak to exactly one counter rune in reality, and that's Gorgon's Gaze. None of the other counter runes really matter that much to the card. It's really just Gorgon's Gaze. I'm pretty sure this is still weak to Gorgon's Gaze. So like there's some rulings that are being worked out exactly how unaffected works. That Siberian was talking about in the revealed cards thread on the official Discord. So we'll see how that all pans out. But okay. So let's say for example, you have the Werepup, you flip up Full Moon. Okay, they chain Gorgon's Gaze, suppress the Werepup. Now it can't special ascend. No fun for you. You're gonna go for a normal ascend play instead. Your guy survived. Okay. You flip up Full Moon so that when Lycavoid hits the field, it will already be unaffected. They chain Gorgon's Gaze. They target your guy on the field. If you have multiple guys, like this goes out the window, and like it's much easier. But those aren't going to be most scenarios. Most scenarios are going to be one guy survived. So you flip up your opponent flips up Gorgon's Gaze, targets your one guy. That guy by Gorgon's Gaze's effect can no longer ascend, so you cannot go into Lycavoid. Okay, you go into Lycavoid first. You just normal ascend into Lycavoid. You just go straight into it. Okay. You flip up Full Moon now. So this effect is if you cast Lunar Phase Full Moon this turn. What that term means in Elestrals is cast is when the card resolves. So the moment Full Moon begins resolving, then you will get this effect. However, the chain is there. So they can flip up Gorgon's Gaze. They can flip up Gorgon's Gaze and target your Lycavoid, and now it is suppressed before it becomes unaffected. Now, this is the part that's unknown right now. Like, the way I understand suppression to work, I don't think you should be able to even get the ability to be unaffected by counter runes after Gorgon's Gaze is resolved, because the way suppression is described in the rules is that it is treated as if the card has no effects. The effect text does not exist. So if the effect text doesn't exist, there shouldn't be any way for a card's effect that makes it unaffected by counter runes to turn online. So that really, really should not work. But we'll see how that pans out. The thing that they're currently working on is specifically in relation to how unaffected works in relation to lingering effects, which Gorgon's Gaze is one of. So we will just have to see. So like this could there could be a world where this can by normal ascending get around Gorgon's Gaze. But even then, if your opponent is wary of the Lycavoid and realize that they're in a scenario where they could just get one shot by Lycavoid, they could just go, okay, I'm just going to shotgun the Gorgon's Gaze and stop you from going for any of that nonsense. So you know, it still has like somewhat of a weakness to Gorgon's Gaze, no matter how you slice it. Actually, I'm thinking about this a bit now, and there would be one way around it. No, actually no. Gorgon's Gaze just stops you from ascending, period. I was thinking about Pulver War and the fact that you could go, okay, you Gorgon's Gaze my guy, Pulver War, put on top, then go into Lycavoid is a different card, but like, no, you can't go into Pulver War. That's still an Ascension. That's still being stopped by Gorgon's Gaze. So, you know, this is a hard card to get a handle on. I think Full Moon will probably need to be running more copies for this card to really find its full potential, which is also not ideal because Full Moon is individually not a very good card, but Porky Wraith does give a lot more good play lines with Full Moon, so it's not the worst thing in the world. And you don't hate having the Foretell 3 when you discard for other things. But space in the Lunar Phase deck is already really tight. I don't know. It's hard to really get a good gauge on how this will pan out. I don't know. Hard to get a grasp on. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Very hard to get a good grasp on. But it's a very interesting card. Very cool to think about. I think it is going to be much like it has a lot of aggro potential. It's very strong in that way. Can just like game shot you out of nowhere. But like Arcalith is way better at doing that. For a big game finisher that's a bit telegraphed, which this will be. Cryo Scorch is like way better. way better. Like I'm gonna have to compare it to Cryo Scorch. Like I have to compare it to Cryo Scorch. I'm a Cryo Rhino gamer. I've won so many games off of Cryo Scorch. I know the strengths and weaknesses of a card like that. I don't know. It is a card that like can come off as being like really strong in the right scenarios. But like those scenarios might just be really difficult to line up, or like the deck that needs to surround it for that to happen might just have too many weak cards. Like Cryo Scorch is aided a lot by like Cryovern just being a really powerful card. Cryoling and Cryovern just being really powerful individually. Werepup is like decently powerful individually, but within the context of a Lunar Phase deck, which needs to be making a lot of concessions in what it's doing. So it's a bit weird. I don't know. Hard to get a full gauge on. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird one. It is a weird one for sure. We'll find out. I'm leaving this one up in the air. I could see it being good. I could see it being bad. Yeah. It's going to really depend on the Lunar Phase deck. And now that we know like that thing regarding Voldusk, that deck as a whole, its prospects do honestly drop a lot. Because Voldusk is now a much more easily answerable card for one cost in the sideboard. So if that deck ever becomes super prevalent, people will be on like 3 to 6 of those cards in their sideboard. Especially since one of them also answers Heal Stall. So, I don't know. Much to think about. Much to consider. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes in the end. But with that said, this is going to be Hunter Surge signing off.